wife, without children, a family. What motivates you, Ratan?
I don't know what motivates me, but let me just stay with that for a minute. There are many times I feel lonely at not having a wife or a family, and sometimes I long for it. Sometimes I enjoy the freedom of not having to worry about the feelings of someone else or the concerns of someone else. And at other times it gets very lonely.
I mean, was it timing that?
Yeah, there's a whole series of things. Timing, my absorption in work at that time. There were very many things. I came very close to getting married a few times, and they didn't work out.
But there are, as they say, confinements and consolations.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So you must miss the consolations today.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
Oh, it's never too late. In fact, I worked in the U.S. as an architect and as a structural engineer for a period of time after I graduated, and had no intention of coming back.
So you were well settled there?
Well, I was not well settled, but I was happily employed there.
Then what happened?
My grandmother talked me into returning, or rather I returned because she wanted me back.
This is Lady Navajbai Tata.
That's right, that's right. She was at that time getting quite old, and I'd been very close to her. My mother and father had divorced when we were my brother and I were quite young. And she brought us up. So I was quite close to her, and she wanted me back. And so I came back for her, or I would not have come.
Yes.
I happily came back.
Okay. After a few months, I remember you moved on to Jamshedpur.
Actually, after 15 days, I think, of returning, I was sent out to Jamshedpur.
What was it like then?
It seemed like everyone was concerned that I should not be treated differently. So I was told to stay in an apprentice hostel, and I worked on the shop floor for 6 months in Telco, and then for a couple of years in Tisco on the shop floor. I was attached to various production departments. I was in the blast furnaces, near the furnace, in the steel melting shops. Again, knew every nook and cranny of the Tisco works. It was terrible at that time, but if I look back on it, it's been a very worthwhile experience, because I've spent years hand in hand with workers. I have mixed with them. I have eaten in their canteens. I have been attached to superintendents. Many of the people who are in management in Tisco today remember those days when this goofy young guy was walking the shop floors.
So actually, the Tata name didn't bring any privileges, did it?
No, in fact, I'd say it was a disadvantage. Here was someone who'd just come in from Los Angeles being told that you will not take your car to Jamshedpur, you will go by bicycle, and out of a sense of rebellion, I refused, and I'd walk to work every day.
Really?
So, those kinds of things, looking back on those years, was a good thing.
Did you at any time feel any regret? What have I done? I mean, those lovely days in LA, and suddenly I'm in the middle of this.
Yeah, I almost went back 3 times in my life.
What stopped you?
I guess as time went on, the prospect, my grandmother died in 4 or 5 years after while I was still in Jamshedpur. And the ties to remain here were less. But I guess as you get involved, it becomes more difficult to pack a bag and move again.
Yeah. Did you ever put to use all the training that you had in architecture and structural engineering?
No, not after I came back. I had the opportunity of designing and building a house for my mother, which still stands, and one house in Jamshedpur, but that's about all.
That's about it. So you were 25 when you moved to Jamshedpur. Do you feel life had surprised you? I mean, did you know how it would turn out?
No. No, it was an experience. It was both culturally an experience, work-wise was an experience.
What was it like working with Mr. G.R.D. Tata?
I just have to say one word. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
One looked at him first, in my case, with a certain degree of awe.
Mm.
I have to say I didn't know Jay in my younger days.
He's not directly related to you?
No. No, people have called him my cousin, my uncle, and so on,
Father
but we were
even.
really not related. And I really first got to know him while I was in Jamshedpur over our common interest in flying.
Mm.
And I set up a flying club at his behest in Jamshedpur, and that brought us a little closer together. And as years went on, we became closer, mostly through the bond of flying,
Okay.
and through his tremendous interest in new things, new technology, electronics, computers, etc., which gave us common ground to talk, and tremendous excitement over so many things of today's world.
Yes. And in those days?
In those days.
I can imagine. I saw a completely different side of him because I'd met him socially on
Yeah.
a number of occasions. Found him very courtly, very generous in his praise. But what I really enjoyed was, we used to play games at a mutual friend's house.
Yes.
And he was wonderful at dumb charades.
I see. That's the side I never saw.
We were, in the beginning, we were always in awe of him.
Yeah.
But within an hour or so, he made us feel he was our age.
He was a wonderful human being, lovely human qualities, totally humble.
Very self-effacing.
You know, he never would let anyone check him in when he flew. He would always stand in line at a check-in counter. That he drove his car home every evening. He often drove himself to work in the morning, and he was an Indian through and through. He was a very, very warm human being. I really got to know him and love him as time went on.
When were you first aware that he had chosen you as his successor?
Well, probably a few days before it happened.
How did he tell you?
Well, that's a little bit of a long story. We were in Jamshedpur together for a function, and I had to go to Stuttgart for some negotiations with Mercedes-Benz. And when I came back, I heard he'd had a heart problem, and he was in Breach Candy Hospital. He was there a week, and I'd see him every day, and then he was out on a Friday, and the following Monday I went to see him in the office. And he'd always start meetings by saying, well, what's new?
Okay.
And I said, well, Jay, I've been seeing you every day.
Yeah.
There's nothing new since I saw you last. And he said, well, I have something that's new that I want to tell you. Sit down. And he said, what has happened to me in Jamshedpur has made me think that I need to step down. And I've decided that you should take my place. And then there were a few days more, and then he took it to the board.
That's on the 25th of March,
I don't remember the
1991.
day, but probably if you say that's the day, that's the day.
But people who were present at that meeting say they regretted not having a camera to record the events. It was a moving experience. Can you take me back to that meeting somewhat?
Well, I've heard many of my colleagues say that there was history that day because apart from the fact that he was stepping down from a position he'd held for, 40, 50 years, there was therefore a lot of emotion attached to his giving up this position in favor of someone. But the history and the emotion that everyone talks about is not that move. He then reminisced through his years at that meeting.
Okay. And
I can't reproduce any of that emotionally or otherwise, but that meeting went on, which is like an archival recount of all his days in Tata. Never his own praise, but just his experiences as he went through. And there was history that day. I think we all came out very moved.
I can imagine. It was the end of an era,
That's
the beginning
right.
of a
That's
new
right.
one.
That's right.
So what did you learn from him that you carry with you always?
What I learned from him, perhaps, and what I carry with me, is a sense of justice, which was always prevalent. He was always fair and just. He always did what he considered to be the right thing, irrespective of how difficult it was. And he stood up for principles, and he stood by people. He stood by me when I was in trouble in Nelco. So his value system, his simplicity, his sense of justice were all things that I think have stayed with me. And I hope I can emulate them even half as well as he was able to do through his life.